So rather than looking at spreadsheets, I take the data off spreadsheets and I build virtual reality models of them so that they can actually visually see it. And not only see it, but it's very interactive model too, so they can actually make changes on the fly. They can say, wait a minute, what if we hire 5 more people here? I can just do it with a click and boom. You'll see them actually walking around, 5 more people. So it's a way of visualizing and playing a lot of what-if games. And you can run it for any amount of time you want, whether it's 2 minutes or 10 years or whatever. And you can look at the results too while it's running. You can look at profit margins, whatever, anything you want to. So some of my customers here in the Bay Area, HP and Cisco, are 2 of my biggest clients, but I also do a lot of startups, quite a bit of startups. And previous to this, I've been VP of Biz Dev at quite a few startups here during the .com era. I played different roles at different companies, and my education, supply chain management from Stanford, bachelor's from Columbia. Let's get on to what's right. I don't like talking about myself. Okay, most business schools teach either in search of excellence or built to last, best practices, etc. And these only comprise 1% of the companies. This book is about the other 99%. Because these are real, I've compiled about 50 stories, and they're real life examples of what happens in different companies. A lot of my experiences at startups are in here. And there are several sources of info and data. I'll get to that on the next screen. And I also present long-term preventive solution strategies, which you can really use as your, whatever you do as a startup, you want to have some guidelines to work on. So this book really provides those guidelines. And there are several ideas for entrepreneurships in here too. And I've even calculated the potential income from those, because there are just so many things that I found out that there's possibilities of improving with entrepreneurship ideas. So the information sources, a lot of my work, consulting work, a lot of the companies would open up all their databases to me and say, here, tell us what you're gonna, how our future is gonna look, and they'd open up all these databases. Well, I look at the data, and sometimes the numbers just didn't add up. There was a discrepancy somewhere. And it wasn't part of my job, but I went ahead and dug deep just to find out for myself. And that's when I found out a lot of these stories. So, so I discovered quite a few scams going on. And then I got confessions from some of the perpetrators. They would just come out and say, oh yeah, I made this much money, I did this on the side, and all that. And then some of the details from some of the people who victimized. And then I verified all this information with publicly available data too. So you can go to Yahoo Finance, look up any company you want, and I do certain calculations on those numbers, and I can actually verify what's going on. I'll give you an example. If you take the profit of a company and you divide it by the total number of employees, you get the productivity of each employee in the company, right? Well, if you take that for several competitors and you compare it side by side, what you find is the numbers are going to vary. Some are going to be high, some are going to be low. And that's when you can tell that something's going on in the company that has a low productivity, which means somebody's skimming off the top there. And if it's got a high productivity, most likely they're very efficient. There's really nothing more to improve there. So the example I brought up is a very quick example, because I do have another event to go to. It's called Book Dumbs, as opposed to Book Smarts. And basically, we had, I was VP of this company where we had an inexperienced CEO, and he basically depended on books for every decision. Like, he'd read books on how to manage, how to do this, how to do that, and was his way of enhancing his experience. Because he had experience, but he was in a different area. But he had a brilliant idea for a security software, And one of the company meetings, we had the whole management team, which contained quite a few experienced people. We had a CTO with a PhD in cryptology and all that. So anyway, we decided that we were going to spend the remainder of the funds to bring in a new technology in order to enable a new business partner that was going to give us $5 million if we embedded our software in their service. So I said, great, but he wanted one particular technology in there. And so we had the money, we decided, okay, that's what we're going to do. But in the meantime, one of the small customers, which was only paying $20 a month, asked for a certain bell and whistle in the software, which, well, let me tell you this. And the CEO's book basically said the customers always come first, right? So what did he do? He went ahead and spent the remainder of the funds on the bell and whistle without informing the rest of the management team, right? So as a result, small customers happy, but we lost a $5 million business dev, which was a huge amount at that time of the startup. So basically, we couldn't raise any more funds after that because we couldn't prove that we could embed our software anywhere else either. And as a result, the startup went out of business, and the small customer was also embedded. You see, and this is just one example. There's a lot of details in the books that I left out for this presentation. But, you know, the preventative solution is, of course, the CEO should always communicate with the management team. And then you have to rely on the management team's experience more than books, you know, because the books are there, yes, to give you guidelines, but you've got to look at, you know, people who have the experience and listen to them. You know, that's part of the CEO's job. And the book contains several other scams. They include all kinds of, so it's not particularly stuck to any one industry. It's just all over the map. And there's examples of all of them in the book. So one of the, when I started writing the book, I had no idea what the conclusion would be because I was still discovering what's going on in some of these stories. So I was doing a lot of research and writing at the same time. And so the conclusion really was, after I wrote it, was when I had to make up the conclusion. So basically, all the incidents in this book total over $700 billion a year, and it's still going on today. And you know, this book only contains a fraction of the companies. You know, there's a reason why not all companies make it to that 1%. It's because 99% of them are not doing everything as perfectly as they should. So there's a reason for each one of those. And so I just estimated this based on just my stories alone in the book. So if you go outside of my stories, this number is going to be a lot higher. And for an example, the Tiger Woods scandal cost $12 billion. They actually calculated this, that right after the scandal, they measured the stock prices that went down and how much it went down by. And they particularly was caused by this scandal. So you can see how this is just one example. And what I look for is common traits in these middle managers. These are not CEOs, by the way. These are stories that happens in the middle level. That's why it's called silver parachutes. These are people who just work in the middle management level. And one of the common traits is that they were usually non-professional, and the career wasn't really their passion in life. Like they had some other passion in life. So they were just doing it for the money. So they're more likely to go astray and do scams, because if it's not their passion in their life, you know, they're just doing it for the money.